Hello and welcome. My name is Ben Anderson. I'm the Managing Director and Founder of Future Estate Group. We are the developer of Laureate, which is part of the successful Parc Vue story. So Parc Vue is a project of about 400 apartments located in Bundoora over 3 stages. So tonight is about a pre-release launch of Laureate, which is the final stage of the Parc Vue project. And tonight I'm going to give you an introduction to the whole story, so starting from scratch and show you where we're at with stage 1, stage 2, and also ultimately the final conclusion of the Parc Vue story being Laureate stage 3. So I've got about 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, you do.
So
please remember to ask questions at the end. So we'll have a small panel discussion. People online, you'll be able to ask questions via chat roll underneath the chat. I can see that there's already a few coming through, which is basically why you'd like to start.
So I'll just sort of jump in. Just one quick slide on our team. So if you don't know Future Estate, we're a team of Melbourne development company. We have a small office in Sydney and also in Brisbane. Our Melbourne team is about 22 people. Here's some of the team on this slide up here. We have a comprehensive management with project management, development management within our business. So we're not just a developer, we also effectively manage our projects. The only thing we don't do really is the contractor. So some of the people up here, and you'll see them around the room, so feel free to introduce. But I think within our management team there's about 400 years of experience, so pretty safe and comfortable hands you're in. We'll jump over to the next slide. Here's an image of some of our projects. So in terms of backstory, we've been around for 7 years. We've completed 9 projects. We currently have a pipeline of about $1.3 billion. We've got 5 main active projects. Parc Vue and Botanic and Laureate is one of our main projects in Melbourne. We have another main project in Coburg Quarter as well, I guess we can talk to them in more detail. Now, here's an image up here of stage 1 Parc Vue. So that was actually taken, I think, last week or a couple of weeks ago. So I'll give you an introduction. It's 133 apartments over 8 levels. There's 2 buildings and it's essentially sold out. The project is due for completion in October. We're ahead of budget, we're ahead of program, and we're really happy with how that's all going. In terms of how it fits in the overall precinct, it's sort of jumping through the slides now. This gives a good context of the location for Parc Vue. One of the things that really stood out to me when we first looked at the site was the unique location. So it's surrounded by Bundoora Park, so it's got absolute park frontage. Laureate is blessed in the sense that it can never be built out. There's also the north-facing stage. So it's really the best stage to last. It's 100 metres above sea level, which I'll show on another slide, but it's higher than Doncaster Hill. To put it into context, so the views are not just of the CBD outstanding, but also out towards the park. You can see out to the bay, you can see the Dandenongs in every direction. You get these outstanding views. You've got a very unique location. One of the other main features about Parc Vue and Laureate is obviously La Trobe University is directly over the road. You can walk directly over the road in about 5 minutes to La Trobe University, which is actually the largest university in Melbourne by student numbers. Here's an image of how the project will look at completion. So this is stage 1. Let's jump through a bit quick there, Josh. It's sort of auto sliding. There we go. This is stage 2 down the end here, which is on the southern end of the project, and here is stage 3, which is ultimately Laureate. Let's move it a bit quickly, but here's an image from the park. Put an auto cue on the slides. Apologies for the technical error there, guys. So maybe what I'll do is, rather than talk to an individual slide, we can just have those go, flick through as I'm chatting, but ultimately the architecture is designed to reflect the unique environment, which is the Bundoora Park, so that you'll see a tiering down of that architecture down to the park. It's using a lot of natural materials such as timbers and stones. It's got wonderful landscaping and connection with the local environment itself. On directly outside, and you'll see there's a photo montage, and you've got 500-year-old river red gums directly at your doorstep in Parc Vue. So the name itself and in Laureate reflects the fact that it's directly adjacent to one of Melbourne's largest and most beautiful parks. We've made use of the access to the park with park fronting yoga, park fronting cafe, an infinity edge pool, which is right in the middle of stage 3. There's a gym that'll overlook the park. So there's a number of features that give you resort-style living, which is very unique for the area. It's the highest standard building that Bundoora has ever seen by far. We've brought a new standard of architecture, inclusion and design to Bundoora, and that's been reflected in the sales success we've had in stage 1 and also in Botanic stage 2. So where we're at in the process is stage 1's under construction and due for completion in October. Stage 2 Botanic is due for construction commencement in about 8 to 12 weeks. There's still a limited number of fantastic apartments available there if people are interested to talk to us about that as well. And Stage 3 today is really the VIP pre-release for Laureate, which is our final stage, which will ultimately be 143 apartments, which have skewed in over the process. We've skewed a little bit more to larger apartments of a higher standard, which is ultimately reflects some of the changes that we've seen in the market, and we've very much reflected the commentary that we've seen from our channels and clients requesting larger apartments. And to give you some examples of that, we're trying to make the lounge rooms wider. We're trying to have apartments with 2 bedrooms with a study as well, so they effectively trade as a 3. We've got more 3 bedrooms. There's 18 3-bedroom apartments in Stage 3, which reflect the fact that there is this downsizer market that a lot of your investor type product is not catering to properly. So we're building it to suit an owner-occupier market. From a capital growth perspective, you'll see a better resale because there's a really strong local market for this sort of product. It's not your 40 square metre box. It's larger apartments that are very livable and suit also an owner-occupier market. The name itself, I guess it's going to continue to slide through, but the reason we went with Laureate is it reflects the French spelling of Parc Vue itself, but also it reflects it's an academic award. It's if you know a Nobel laureate, it reflects something that's a market distinction, reflects something being of the highest standard and an integrity that comes with that. So we think it's a really apt way to reflect the completion of such a wonderful project, and hopefully the market responds to it the same. In terms of the interiors, they're another notch up from each project that we've done. We've got hardwood floors, you've got stone bench tops, there's you can see here some of the imagery. There's completely seamless indoor-outdoor living, floor-to-ceiling windows. Nearly every apartment has these absolute unencumbered views of the park, and in most cases they're also north-facing with views of the park as well. A lot of the apartments will look down over the pool and the resort-style facilities, so you've got a really unique investment proposition in terms of resale for the local market, but at the same time the investment returns are really strong from a yield perspective, so there'll be positive cash flow for somebody on a 20% deposit on a typical mortgage rate. In some cases strongly positive cash flow. There's a number of rental options available. We've got a heads of agreement in place with Laureate University, which is directly over the road, to essentially be their preferred accommodation provider for a range of things. That's both short-term stay accommodation, which will be some component of the project, longer-term stay under longer-term leases to the university, and also the preferred overflow for student accommodation, which essentially is a hotel-style accommodation for wealthier foreign students that don't want to be in a smaller dorm room type environment. So essentially, it's you've got your room service, you've got ability to have your sheets changed every day, but mum and dad are footing the bill, and there is surprisingly a very strong demand for that. So it gives investors certainty they've essentially got your rent back by a university, and we're in a unique position, I guess, to capture that demand, given we're directly over the road from the university. So what's interesting is actually Latrobe, they've got some on-site accommodation. Their boards have looked at, do we build more, investor capital and supply it ourselves, or do we partner with a developer? We're fortunate to be in a position to have captured that demand, which gives people a lot of certainty from an investment return perspective as well. If we talk about Bundoora, when we first looked at Bundoora as an investment, the way that we got to that was a methodology that we have at Future Estate, which is to assess from a top-down perspective. So we're not finding a site and then trying to justify why it is that we bought that site and why we think it's a good investment proposition. Our thought process was more looking for markets within Melbourne from a quantitative perspective that exhibit characteristics that are likely to achieve better investment returns, principally capital growth. So we've got a quantitative model that we use. It enables us to rank suburbs, and essentially what that model was saying 2 years ago is we should be looking in the middle ring of the northern suburbs of Melbourne, and ultimately we honed in onto Bundoora. Now, we're glad that we have, because since we've invested into Bundoora, it's been one of the strongest apartment markets and housing markets in Melbourne. It's had around 20% growth in that time, and it's really vindicated our investment decision. So the purchases in stage 1, no doubt we'll be happy when it comes time for valuations and settlements, but there's also a lot of still momentum in the Bundoora market. There's still a really strong affordability proposition relative to other areas of similar distance from the city as well. So some of the key features are education. You've got the 2 main universities there, Latrobe and RMIT, so it's essentially Melbourne's university town, for want of a better word. It's got great transport access, so directly up the front of Parc Vue there's a tram stop. It's essentially on its own light rail tracks that go straight into the city, and just the other side of the park there's a train station as well. about 2 k's away is the ring road, so well serviced from all forms of transport. Healthcare, there's hospitals and a number of medical facilities in the local area. Recreation, we're surrounded by Bundoora Park. There's 2 golf courses. You've got all the wonderful sporting facilities over the road at Latrobe. Melbourne City train there. You know, so the facilities over the road from a sporting perspective, recreational perspective, are outstanding. And also, I guess from a shopping perspective, there's a shopping centre with a Woolies and 26 retailers literally directly over the road. So there's sort of ticks all the boxes from a location perspective. And importantly, affordability. It's the same distance from the city. Again, to use a sort of Doncaster example, as Doncaster exactly, yet it's significantly more affordable from a price point perspective. So you're getting a lot more real estate per square metre, you know, a lot more for your dollar per square metre than you would be in Doncaster. Yet it has really unique features that we think are going to perform well over the long term. Here's a few images, I guess, of the local area. RMIT just up the road. There's the tram stop out the front. Okay, so they'll continue to scroll through. What else can I sort of cover off on? In terms of the release for, just touch on the local market. I can get that slide. So we've commissioned a report from Michael Matuzik. If anyone here knows, Michael Matuzik is an independent property research firm, and essentially his role was to undertake research from an independent perspective on Bundoora as an investment proposition and also from an apartment market proposition. And essentially his findings were that the local area is now in an upturn phase. And what this slide here shows, if we can stick on it, Josh, a little bit, is that really the growth cycle has moved out from Melbourne. So 2010-11 it was really Carlton Fitzroy, 2012 Brunswick, Northcote. So this is from the Matuzik report, it's not our findings. It's moved then out to Thornbury and Preston, and what's happened is the highest rate of growth last year and coming into this year has actually been Bundoora, Watsonia, Kingsbury and McLeod. So it's moved just a little bit further out from town where the highest rate of growth has been, and a big part of that is to do with that relative affordability. So it's pushed people just one notch further out from town, and we're seeing a lot of momentum in the local market, and the statistics certainly support that. So I'd encourage anyone who wants a copy of that report to get in contact with us, because there's some really good findings in it. Essentially the summary is that it's in the early stages of an upturn phase. Values and sales prices are rising. Asking prices are actually continuing to rise by about 10% per annum in Bundoora. The market momentum is really accelerating in Bundoora, so that's a really great thing. In a market where there's mixed views, Bundoora's continued to perform well. The vacancy rate is extremely low in Bundoora, and it's always stayed that way. It's varied since we've invested in Bundoora between about 1.5% and 2.5%, which is well below that 3 to 4%, which is supposed to be a stable market, and continue to be consistently below the Melbourne average. So it's easy to find a tenant, and you've got an environment that's been relatively undersupplied in terms of quality new rental stock. And also there's been a process of demographic change, which is interesting. So again, I use the Doncaster example. We've seen that it's been a younger demographic moving into the area that have got higher education levels, higher affluence, and have continued to really uplift the local investment, the stock in the area. So a typical scenario would be knock over an old home, build a new home, and then now that new home is worth over $1 million. So there's been some of the stories underpinning that typical growth. Rental yields are very high in Bundoora, so obviously higher for one bedrooms, but at 5.8%, which is I think as of last month. The apartment price growth over the last 3 years has been 21.4%, so it's been a really strong market where a lot of suburbs have seen house price growth but not apartment price growth. And one of the main reasons for that is that there's not a lot of new supply coming onto Bundoora. We're the really biggest project in the area, yet you've got 28,000 students in Bundoora and you've only got a couple of main projects really. So that's a really good story obviously from an investment perspective. Projected population. So this is again from Michael Matuzik's report, where you can see this is the local area, so Darabin City Council. So we couldn't get it right down to the Bundoora level, but this is the council that Bundoora sits within. It's continued to grow and is projected to grow by about 60,000 over the next 20 years. Jump to the next slide. But this is really important here. Unlike a lot of areas of Melbourne, based on Michael Matuzik's findings, it's actually an undersupplied market, but that's vindicated in the statistics. Low vacancy rates, rents are rising, prices are rising, but it is largely due to the fact that there is population growth. There's a real need for accommodation that's not being supplied. So where we've tried to position Parc Vue Botanic and finally Laureate is to be the prestige project in the area. We're by far the best project from a design perspective, from an architectural perspective, from a location perspective as well. You can't get better than absolute park views and CBD views from most of the apartments. What we've found is that people are wanting a higher standard of product than historically has been provided in the area. And you can have a look around, and I'd encourage you to grab one of the brochures to see the level of inclusion. Now, I guess we'll move on to questions.
Yeah, what I'd love to do is take a seat, get my mic down a little bit so it doesn't deafen everybody, and ask you a few questions. We've got a couple rolling in online. I've got a few myself. I'd love to drill into to understand the product a little bit. Could you turn me down? A lot. Thank you. I'd love to understand the product a little bit more. And in particular, you've got fantastic views back to the city, you've got fantastic views in Christmas Park. Are there any units that are compromised? Are there any that people should be focusing on when they're recommending them to their clients?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We've tried with the architectural design. We've got actually Renato and Zago here from MAP Architecture and Design in the back, that were the architects, project architects for Parc Vue and Laureate. We've tried to ensure that by the angling of the apartment design, so essentially the building is almost like a big V or a U shape. Now in the middle of that V or U shape we've got core, and effectively faces out to the park. So by virtue of its sort of splaying shape, it actually means that nearly every apartment captures an apartment. It captures a view of the park, or
yes.
CBD or both. There are very few that don't have a view,
yes.
And really the only ones that say that maybe are compromised in any way right in the middle of that V, but that again is reflected in price, which will mean that they'll yield 5-6%. So there's something for everyone in terms of the larger apartments are typically at the end of those V's or U's, and that's typically 3-bedroom apartments with a tiering shape. Some of them have very large balconies, which will also enjoy those views. Some of them are 100 metres.
Let's talk about price and size. What are your price points through the development?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take one step back. In stage 1, we averaged about 7,300 a metre. The product was more focused around an investor product, with the majority being 1 bedroom, about 60%, and then about 40% were 2s. Now, stage 2 is about 7.6 a metre, 7.7 a metre, where we've had a lot less 1 bedrooms, much more 2 bedrooms, and also some 3 bedrooms. So
yes.
The dollar price point has increased a little bit through to stage 2, but the per square metre rate only changed about $300. In terms of stage 3, it's again just a slight change. Per square metre rate's only about $7.9 a metre, which compared to 21% growth in that same time frame is a really modest increase, and also it really reflects additional inclusion. So it's not really an escalation in price, it's actually a better standard finish. The apartment sizes, again, we're reflecting what we believe are the market changes, where they're a bit larger. So your price points have gone up maybe about 15 to 20 grand per apartment, but the per square metre rate has stayed relatively constant.
We're noticing the demand for larger apartments. So across our platform, smaller 1 bedrooms and studios are becoming much less popular, as are small 2s. What your 2s? What do they start at in terms of square meterage?
Typical scenarios are about 65 square metres, but we've got a number of a broad range of sort of 2+1s that are about 75 square metres. So I found that there's a sweet spot there for a lot of people where they don't want to pay for 3, but they do want to have a genuine 2-bedroom with a study option. So you're not having to use a 3rd bedroom as a study, it's just a study, and we find that works quite well from a price point and utility perspective.
Yeah. Eric Online's asked, does every apartment come with a car park?
Yes.
Is that additional to the price, or is that included?
No, they're included within it.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
So there's a basement underneath, which is shared across the stages. Ultimately, there's about 490 car parks for about 400 apartments roughly.
And what are owner's court fees like in the development?
Now, they're starting in stage 1 at about $700 a metre. Now, with the inclusion of the additional resort-style amenities, will still be below $2,000 a metre, and that's inclusive of access to rooftop sky club, gym, yoga, and also pool.
For those that like to lock in sort of an average annual body corporate fee, what do they tend to be for 1s, 2s and 3s, roughly?
Oh, okay. I think, look, on an average across the board,
Yeah.
will be below $2,000. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic, that's quite cheap.
Yeah.
How do you maintain a low body corporate fee with a lot of timber around? Because that often is an expensive feature.
Yeah, so that's actually it's a module for the product. It's not actually a timber, so it doesn't require, I guess, regular rectification. So it'll stay the same over time. Yeah.
That's right. Will any of the ground floor apartments have direct street access or direct access onto the park?
Yes, so that's a very good question. Both Stage 2 Botanic and also Stage 3 Laureate, all of the ground floor apartments pretty much have the ability to swing their gate open and walk straight into the park. So essentially, generally, they've got courtyards of around 20 to 30 square metres on ground floor. So it's a really nice story for someone who either, maybe older demographic, but also just people who might have dogs or other things where really the benefit of access in the park. So it's about 20 apartments to satellites.
Okay, that's fantastic. There's a couple of questions around the relationship with the university. How does that actually work from an owner's point of view? Like, what if I buy a unit there and I settle and then trot along? What do I do?
Yeah, so we want to offer a range of rental options for purchasers. So again, each apartment is straight residential, or value as residential, and just on that topic, we have independent valuations for all the apartments, and also we'll lend against this straight residential as well. So, however, we do have rental models that people could select. So you could go into a rental guarantee situation. You could go into a rental pool where potentially yields more like 7 to 8%, but you're sharing a varied occupancy for a short-term stay. You could select to be effectively student accommodation, and then there's a furniture pack option and finance available for that. So it really is up to the individual investor. And then your typical scenario being you get to settlement with a lot of projects, and there isn't really a rental solution, there's no furniture solution, and you're on your own. In this case, there's 4 to 5 options in each purchaser can select.
Fantastic. So there are rental guarantees available.
Correct.
What are they ranging from?
5 to 6%.
Okay, that's good. More than is necessarily required. What's your approximate time to completion?
Stage 1 we do in October. Stage 2 will commence in about 2 to 3 months' time. Will be a 14 to 16 month completion period. Stage 3 is obviously the sales process we're about to commence, and it will be about a 16-month construction phase. So actually the construction lag for the completion of the whole story is relatively short.
And I suppose in buying the last stage, you're not going to be pestered by settling whilst you've got other stages under construction.
That's correct.
That's a big advantage. Can I open up questions to the room? I do love the sound of my own voice, but...
Yeah, you said that broke down the last
The Owners Corporation rules are being drafted, so generally it depends actually, they vary. We've seen various Owners Corporation rules. One that's a more funny example was you were allowed to have dogs, cats and dogs, but not pigs or smelly animals. So I'm sure it was something similar to that, yeah. Dogs are generally...
I've seen a Owners Corporation rules that say you are allowed to have dogs, however not a dog that grows over the knee.
It's not a bad one, yeah. Who's knee?
Sorry? I think mine too.
Small dog should be fine.
Do we have other questions? Yes, John.
You said, will there be a shuttle bus proposed for the Shine Beauty to come through there? Because I know the shuttle bus that goes across the road to the shopping centre.
You must have inside information, John.
I do.
There is actually, yeah. We are in dialogue with Laureate at the moment for exactly that service, and whether it's just continual or whether it's on a certain schedule, yes, we are looking at a shuttle bus. And also, we're looking with some options around electric cars and car share services as well. Whilst every apartment has a car park, we're from an environmental perspective and also from a tenant amenity perspective, we're looking at that as well. So if you just want to zip out to down the road to Northland, for example, do shopping, but someone doesn't own a car.
What's the rental market in Bundoora like outside of the universities? We're talking a lot about students.
Yep.
Who else rents that?
Well, I mean, I guess we're sort of focusing on access directly over the road. However, you've got actually quite a large downsizing market as well. So if you look at, we're on the corner of Plenty Road and Snake Alley Drive. Now, Snake Alley Drive, if you look at that as a microcosm, Bundoora in itself, so you look at the median house price, it's quite misleading. Snake Alley Drive, the median house price is $1.4 million. So can someone sell the house there and downsize to an $800,000 3-bedroom apartment that's the size of the house? Yes, they can, and we're seeing that demand. So there is actually both ends of the spectrum. You've got the downsizing market as well as your investor market. And you've also got very much that emerging demographic that are young professionals, dual income, highly educated. And the demographic change there has been very akin to what we might have seen in, say, Box Hill or Doncaster.
Do you see in previous stages any owner occupiers?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think the owner occupiers have really been quite smart. They knew that the first stage was onto the main road and they waited for Botanic, which is absolute Parc Views, and also we expect Laureate will have even greater high demand.
And on that, do you have an on-site presence that agents can utilise?
Absolutely.
How do they do that?
So right on to right on the corner of Plenty Road, we've got a display suite open at the moment. So agents can get a key to that or a pin to that, and can bring in. They will support any of our channels in relation to events needed.
Okay.
So if you want us to present or provide materials or other things, often that can be done in a small format on site within the display suite. We can also conduct site tours if people wanting to do that as well. Absolutely, we'll support it.
And is there a way that agents can register their buyers with you to make sure that you're not competing with each other?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do they do that?
So look, the way we work with all of our channels, ultimately with our industry relies on honesty. So if someone has got a particular channel that they're working with, a particular buyer, we can register that buyer, and we won't be selling to an individual. And in the scenario that there is the odd time that you do get overlap, really what it requires from us and hopefully from everyone that we're dealing with is just a degree of honesty and integrity. So we're not going to steal someone's client, we're not going to try to go around your back to a client or to someone's channel. We want to create a team that can work together to ultimately complete a successful story.
That's good. Do we have more questions? I've got a couple more online. Yes.
Yeah, hi, thanks for that presentation. What percentage any units approved?
So the question is, any of the questions for
The whole project is FIRB approved actually. So before the cut-off last December, we approved both of our main Melbourne projects entirely, so 100% FIRB approved. However, the only real limitation is our financing banks and obviously the acceptance they'll have around percentages of foreign and local. So again, 100% approved, and then we'll work with individual groups to get that mix right.
We've got one more question online, which was, what's the breakdown of apartments? I think you covered that early on, but stage one had...
Yeah, we've had a real evolution, and it'd be interesting to get everyone's thoughts in the room and online. We've seen a change in the market. We've seen that clients, both end consumer and channels, have requested that apartments are more livable, of a higher standard and a larger. And this apartment projects throughout stage 1, 2, 3 has, I think, reflected those changes. There was no 3s in stage 1, majority 1s and fewer 2s. Stage 2 was majority 2s, less 1s and a few 3s. And stage 3 has 18 3-bedrooms. I think the numbers are 42 2+1s.
Yeah.
So again, much skewed to the larger size. Price point obviously goes up a little bit because you've got additional meterage, but it provides a much more livable apartment that we think will resell better, and I think better reflects that demand as well.
I think we're finding that trend. I think there was a real fashion around creating 42 square metre 1-bedrooms, and I saw a 54 square metre 2-bedroom in one development, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to settlement time and people get in there and experience the livability, it's not always what they want.
Yeah, no, we try to make sure, as a general principle, we try to ensure that all of our apartments are livable, right? And it's not just, it doesn't look good on a piece of paper and yields up well, it actually functions well as a place to live. Because ultimately for your purchasers, if they need that resale eventually down the track, it's not just about yield. So
yeah.
We've got that balancing act between price point and yield, though, with apartments are between about $360 on the 1-bedroom side, but again, we're not doing that smaller 1-bedroom product. They're typically 50 square metres, 8 square metre balcony, including car space within that, plus storage included as well. Through to the upper end of the band, we've got some 120 square metre 3-bedrooms with the same size on the balcony, and they're at about 800. So there is a big range there. A lot of it in that 450 to sort of 500 range, and a little bit above as well.
That's terrific. And how do you manage all of the facilities? So I was looking over there and seeing a fairly impressive gym with a beautiful view, and there's that barbecue area there. What's the deal? Are there private operators in any of the facilities,
yeah,
like the cafe?
Actually, the question was asked around owners corporation before.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So it's essentially a hybrid model. So we're conscious that if you've got, half the building, let's say, are investors that want a tight gross to net rental yield, they don't want owners corps to be too high. You still want a point of difference to attract a tenant. You don't really want to pay more than the bare minimum for that. So the way it'll function is each residents within any one of the 3 stages can use all of the facilities. So the Sky Club, which is that one on the end there, is on the top of the highest point in stage 1. That's available to someone in Laureate. The gym as well is available to everyone. The pool as well is available to everyone. So you're sharing it across 400 odd apartments instead of just 130 to 40 in each stage. In addition to that, it's free to use for all residents and owners. but also there will be in the gym, it's intended that there'll be a third-party operator there that essentially is able to conduct personal training classes for external, general public members, and as a result of that, it's essentially offsetting the cost of the owner's corporation. So it's a bit of a hybrid model which enables to keep the cost lower. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. We're done with our online questions. Do we have any more in the room? If not, Ben, thank you very much for your time. Would you point out quickly your staff that are in the room, so if people have questions, want to delve deeper into the product, they can ask them.
Okay. Andrew Swinson over there, if you raise your hand. So he's one of the sales managers, and we'd love to have a chat with you. We've got a few hiding away at the bar up there. Annalise, if you wave your hand, is our marketing manager. Steph Rowland, hiding away at the bar, if you want to wave your hand. And also my brother Mark is behind the cameraman over there. So there's our team tonight. So I think there's 5 of us. So feel free to approach and have a chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, and thank you everyone online for watching, and thanks for coming. And please enjoy the hospitality of Ben and the team, and ask plenty of questions. Thank you.